Misty Purcell. Welcome to the Luminous Fiber Arts Flosstube channel. I'm here today to talk to you about what I've been working on in cross stitch, and I'm also going to show some weaving that I did and a really awesome stitched gift that I received, some new designs I have coming out, and I'm going to show you some tips for finishing your projects, tell you a little bit about weaving, and if you're interested in getting a loom, how you could do that. I'm gonna show you a new sewing machine I got. So we're all over the place today, and that's how we're gonna roll. Okay, so let's start with talking about a gift that I received and someone special that I got to see. So I had the pleasure of meeting up with Helen D, East Coast Crafter. She was driving through town on her way to visit some family. And so we met up at a restaurant here in town, and it was so good to see her. It's been a year since I last saw Helen, when she last came through. And so we just had a great time talking and catching up. And we did a little gift exchange. So I'll have to show you this awesome piece that she made for me. So this little star is a design by Teresa Kogut. I think Helen said it's from Teresa's Patreon, and Helen used Vanna's star tutorial for guidance on finishing. It's just beautiful. And then she scoured the internet for these weaving shuttle perns. For days she was thinking about it, and so they're like firecrackers or fireworks in the bowl. She got the bowl from Joann's, and then she ordered these perns to go in the bowl as fireworks. And I think it's like just the coolest, cleverest idea. Helen is always so creative. So thank you, Helen, for the beautiful gift. I've been enjoying having it on display. It's on my hutch on the like main shelf there. And I gave Helen a towel I'd woven for her. I'll insert a picture of it here. So I picked a blue, kind of a soft blue color. I wasn't sure what would be the best color, but I know Helen likes blue. So that was the blue I chose for her. Okay, so that was a gift I received from Helen. And let's see, what else are we going to talk about? I just released 2 new Mousecapades. So there's a little series I like to call the Mousecapades. And Mousecapades 1 was Mice on Ice. And then Mousecapades 2 was On the Housetop. And then now we have, this is a 7-part series. There's 6 small designs and 1 large design. We have number 3, a snow mouse in the meadow. We can build a snow mouse. And when you're building a snow mouse in the meadow, you use whatever you can find. So there's a gumdrop or gumball, pink gumball for the nose, and we have some coal for the eyes and the buttons, and then a red woolen scarf and a mitten. So they're getting them all dressed up for winter. Perfect winter activity after a snowfall. And then Mousecapades 4 is called Reindeer Games. And, so the thing is that the reindeer only work 1 day a year, Christmas Eve. And then they have 364 days to just kind of hang out and sit around. And Santa was concerned that they might get a little flabby because they weren't working more often than that. So he designed the reindeer games so that the reindeer would have something to do the rest of the year. So they train the rest of the year for the reindeer games. And then they compete for medals from Santa. And a couple of the categories are fastest flyer and astoundingly agile. So all of these are the same size. The 6 are the same size, and then the 7th is larger. They're being released throughout the year. The back, I was asked about the back. It's just a green batik I picked up. And all of them have that batik, and then they all have the Sequoia mini pom-pom trim from Lady Creates. This is 32 count Smoky Pearl linen by Zweigart. And I used a mix of Classic Colorworks, Weeks Dye Works, and DMC to stitch these. So there's also a complimentary border on my website, and you can download that if you'd like to stitch all 7 designs together. It shows you what the suggested placement would be, and it gives you the border to stitch. I'll link that below the video. I get asked questions about my finishing, and I follow Vanna's tutorials very closely, so I recommend that you check out Vanna's finishing tutorials. But a couple of things I wanted to share were how flat you can get the pillows after you stuff them if you use a hot steam iron, and a couple other pillow tips I have for you that I do a little bit differently than Vanna. So I use Helen D's suggestion of stuffing yarn in the corners. So each corner has a little piece of yarn before I stuff the polyfill inside. And the reason for that is because when you steam iron the polyfill, it shrinks up, and it seemed like no matter how hard I stuffed these pillows, I would lose some of the polyfill out of the corners. So the yarn is my way of keeping the corners more fully stuffed. And then the other thing that I do is instead of using one piece for the back and sewing everything together and leaving an opening at the bottom to turn, I actually cut 2 pieces of fabric for the backing. And I'm going to show you in a video how I piece them. So I basically, you have to do, so I never really talk about this method because I figure, like, I'm more particular than most people. I don't want you to feel like you have to do this. It's just something I do that works well for me, because doing it in the bottom, I couldn't get the bottom as flat. But it requires, you know, for me doing some math, and I don't mind that, but not everybody likes to do that. So whatever, do this, don't do this. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm not invested in people doing things my way. I'm a college professor. I am used to telling people what I think is a good way to do something and having them completely ignore me. So it's fine. I'm not invested at all in anyone doing this. I'm just telling you what I do in case it is helpful to you. So anyway, I take 2 pieces of fabric. I interface them just like Vanna says. And then I sew them until, you know, depending on how big the pillow is, right? I'm going to leave room for turning. So maybe a 2-inch, 3-inch gap, whatever, depending on how big the pillow is. So I sew. And then this is a tip that I learned from Michelle Patterns from doing her sewing patterns. So you stop, you back stitch. Then you set your stitch length for a much longer stitch. You're kind of like basting. You stitch for whatever, 2 or 3 inches, however many inches you need. Stop, go back to your regular stitch length, stitch forward, back stitch, and then go to the end, and you know, you're back stitching on both ends too. So basically you're locking the stitches around the hole that you're creating. That way you go and you iron your seam open, and then you've got your fold line for when you need to sew it up by hand, because you've pressed the seam. So I go to the ironing board, I press the seam open on the back of this, it's all sewn up. Then I take a seam ripper and I rip open the basting stitches, and then I have a hole to turn. So to the front of my pillow, that's my hole for turning, and also my hole for stuffing, and it's right in the center back of the pillow. Then I just stitch it up with a ladder stitch. So that's how I do pretty much all of my pillows, except for if I'm using the velveteen. I don't do it that way. I just cut a slit in the back before I sew it to begin with. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Hopefully I answered all questions about the mousecapades, but if I forgot something, you can ask it in the comments. I'm going to be releasing the next 2 in August, and then the final one, the 7th one, will release in October. So you can find the supplies. I have fabric, and I have small floss packs that'll get you a few of the designs, but I have larger floss packs coming back in stock soon. The floss is on order. So I restock all the supplies regularly if you need supplies for the models. And if you join, I'm doing a stitch along, which I'm failing at miserably, but there is a stitch along for this called the Mousecapade Sal. Hope you'll join. Just use a hashtag, show us what you're working on. You don't have to stitch them all. You can stitch one or however many you like. Okay, so those are the Mousecapades, and let's talk about a cross-stitch project I have. So I wanted to mention my mystery stitch along, which is running this month. It's going great. I'm loving seeing your projects, and it's so cool seeing them stitch on different colors of fabric. I've seen mine was stitched on kind of a yellowish color, but I've seen greens and blues, and people are just cooking along. So I wanted to show you what the first clue was, the borders, and then the second clue is sneaky, which is the design that goes in the top rectangle of the 3 rectangles. So I want to give you a little peek at that. If for some reason you don't want to see it, you'll want to avert your eyes because I'm just going to show the first square because we're still in the middle of the stitch along. But here is the sneaky part of Sneaky Spooky Spells. I think it's super cute. And so you could stitch these 3. There's the other 2 you can't see. You can stitch them all together on one piece of fabric, or you could stitch them as ornaments if you wanted to. You can make them into pillows, whatever you want. I stitched mine on linen, but you don't have to use linen. You could use Lugana, Aida. There is some back stitching and long stitching, just so you know. But there's lots of great, you know, video and written tutorials out there if you haven't done that and you want to give it a try. So there is Sneaky, and then Spooky is coming out on the 11th of July, and Spells will come out on the 21st. The stitch along runs through the month of July. You can join anytime. You can join now. The pattern is a PDF download on my website, and you just purchase it once, and then you have access to the clues that are available. And then I send an update email out each time there's a new clue available for you to download. So, yeah, I hope that if you're in the stitch along that you're enjoying it. And, you know, if you're interested, just this is a little bit of a peek for you. Okay, so I'm going to put it away now so you can look if you were averting your eyes. Okay, so my birthday start was the Halloween Cat Pendibule, I think that's what it's called, by Doreen Jones. Turning out super cute. I picked this because it looks so awesome. The pendibule shape I think is really neat. And I love black and orange. It looked like it'd be quick, and I tend to pick kind of larger birthday projects. I thought, let's do something a little bit simpler. Helen had done a finishing tutorial. It seemed doable. So this is 32 count soft pumpkin. And I'm using Black Coffee by Classic Colorworks, which is one of my favorite shades of black. I increased the difficulty level of this project by messing up some counting over here, and then I had to fudge a little bit because counting is hard. But anyway, you can't really tell. And so I'm going to keep stitching and then add some beads if I have some that are the correct size, and try to get this finished up to display this year, hopefully. I sometimes get questions about the frames. This is Edmund's stretcher bars. I get the minis. These are 6-inch. You get 2 in a pack. So you would need to buy 2 packs in order to have 4 pieces. And that's because these parts are interchangeable. You can just pull them off. You could get like 6-inch bars to go with 7 or 8 if you wanted a rectangle. So that's how they work. And then you just use tacks to tack them in place. So I use this for small ornament projects, and then I put it in my Kay's Creations lap stand. There's a tool that comes with the tacks to push them in and to take them out. I do find that after tightening everything, within a couple days, the fabric has stretched a bit and I need to retighten. That's often the case for me. But it works well for smaller projects, and then I don't use up as much fabric, because if I'm doing 40 count, I'll stitch it in hand, but if I'm doing 32 count, I usually want to do it in some kind of a frame. So that is that. And I hardly worked on Beggar's Fourth. My arm was hurting, and so that didn't see any love, hardly, just like a few stitches. I haven't been stitching as much lately. I'm getting some models sent out, and I haven't been in the mood to stitch as much, so I'm just kind of letting that be how it is for right now, rather than trying to force myself to stitch more, because I'll be more in the mood later. So I don't want to make it a chore. I do have some model stitching coming up, so I can only kind of juggle so many things as it is, but I wanted to show you a couple of towels that I had finished weaving. One was one I had shown you in my last video on the loom, and now it's done. So this is like the one that I gifted to Helen, but in a different shade of blue. So the warp on all of these towels is this navy color. And then I just changed the weft out on each towel. I love this pattern. It was a good pattern to jump back into weaving with because it's really easy. Easy to thread, easy to weave, easy to catch yourself if you make a mistake. It just went really smoothly, like much more smoothly than I would have expected after having 3.5 years off from weaving. I love how the towel feels. It's really a nice kind of, this particular weave structure, I don't know, it's just really squishy with this twill and these blocks like this. And I love how drapey the towel is. You know, it's got really nice hand. So I like watching when Jane Stafford does this in her weaving videos where she's like, look how drapey it is. So this towel is mine and I love it. So I used my old labels, which I have to sew on the sides, but I didn't really want to keep using those. So for the moment, I'm just kind of folding them over into the hem, but I ordered some new labels with my new logo, my Bluebird logo. This is Luminous Fiber Arts, and those will be, they'll be folded over into the hem. So I'm pretty excited about those getting here. They just shipped yesterday. What else can I say about this? I don't know. I'm glad I wove it. It's awesome. I've got more that I'm waiting for the new labels to show up, and then I'll wash them and hem them and share them hopefully in my next video. So yeah, so pretty. I was sharing not this towel but a different towel on Instagram, and someone was like, I don't know that I would clean up like messes with that. It's like, well, I don't clean up messes with these. I mean, you could certainly. I just use them for drying my hands and for drying dishes if I need to. You know, like really old ones, yeah, I would do that. And I have some that are probably at least 5 years old. They've been washed hundreds of times at this point. They still hold up really well. So I love that about hand woven towels. They still look good. They still work well. But a much older towel, I would maybe be willing to clean up a mess with, but certainly not this one. Hot off the loom, no way. Yeah, so I'll show you a little video of taking the fabric off. I'll show you a little bit of weaving footage, or like taking the fabric off the loom so you can see, because it's kind of fun to watch it come off. Like it's a big event. Okay, and then after I finished those twill block towels, I moved on to, I was having a hard time picking a next project. There were so many things I wanted to weave, but I decided to do some pinwheels because I'd woven pinwheels several years ago as a gift for a friend's mom, like some pinwheel towels, and I wanted to try them again, and I was in the mood for something red, white, and blue, I decided. So in both cases, these are modifications of other people's modifications of drafts that are out there. So there was a draft and someone tweaked it, and I saw their version and I tweaked their version. So that's what both of these are. So here's the pinwheels. This is a mix of pinwheels and plain weave. So the plain weave, just over, under, over, under, over, under. That's what you're seeing here. And then here where the pinwheels are, that's twill, which is like on a diagonal, which is exactly what you're seeing here. These diagonals, that's twill. And that's also twill. It just looks different, but that's what it is. So the way that the other person had woven it, she had actually used red, white, and blue, but I tweaked it a little bit, and this was a longer white section with nothing in it, and I added the navy stripe and shortened it, and then I also used 2 different shades of blue. So we've got a light blue here and then a navy crossing it, and I just thought that added a little bit more interest and depth to the fabric when I was looking at it in the weaving design software, which is a super helpful thing. I use iWeave It because I'm, you know, in the Apple product system, but there's other weaving softwares out there if you're looking. Anyway, I love how this turned out. So I got it on the loom, and then as I was finishing up, I'm like trying to figure out the order of the stripes, make sure I put things in the right order so this doesn't get messed up. And I'm like, I think I'm missing a couple colors at the end, because I shouldn't be ending with white here. Like I should be I'm missing like a red. So I went back and checked my pattern. Sure enough, I'd forgotten to write down 2 stripes at the very end. So I quickly wound those, added them on. It was fine. Got the loom all set up, found like 1 cross thread in my reed, fixed that. And then I wove like maybe, I did some test weaving, some sampling, and then I started weaving the towel, and I got maybe 10 inches in. Now when I wove the pinwheel towels the last time, I set it at 24 ends per inch. So set is like, you know, how closely are the threads together? Like, are they like this or this? That's what your count is basically in your cross stitch fabric. It's like the set. Okay, so when I wove it before, I did like the standard 24 for a twill, and I knew it was too tight. I could not get things squared up because it was so close here that when I came back through here, this part could not be squared. So my weft could not be squared. It was hard to beat in because you're beating with your beater, and it's hard. So I set this at 20 ends per inch, and it was still hard. I'm like, oh man, I should probably cut everything and re-slay my reed. There's a lot of weird words in weaving, like slaying and beating and things like that, but it's a violent hobby. Anyway, I re-slayed my reed to 18 ends per inch, and that made it so much better. And I'm really happy with this fabric. It's just really light and drapey. The pinwheels look really good. So I'm much happier with this. I'm glad I stopped. So anyway, after I wove this, though, I was having a little bit of tension issues, what they call like a smile in the warp, where the ends go up. I wanted to cut off this towel and see if I could fix that by tightening up the sides, the edges, the bouts on the edge. So anyway, I cut everything off, and then that gave me an excuse to hem this and wash it and use it. But I, of course, couldn't use it because I was making a video. So now I can use it. Anyway, so I had planned for 3 towels. I wasn't sure if I could get 3 towels by having cut fabric off twice. But I just finished weaving this morning, and I did get 2 more towels out of this warp. So that made me very happy. The end was a little bit of a challenge because I was getting right up to the end of the, like, what was left of the yarn. But I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I experimented with the other 2. So I did one where it's just all pinwheels the whole way in stripes, and then one where it's just like a border of pinwheels, and then it's plain weave again up until the other border. So I've got a little video of those coming off the loom, and I can share that too, but I'll show the towels, you know, sometime in the future. And I had some questions on Instagram about, you know, would I consider selling towels again? And I think that, you know, doing a few here and there, I definitely would. I wouldn't do as many as I did before because I'm busy with designing and dyeing fabric and my day job. Even if I'm not currently busy with the day job, I will be. So I don't have a lot of time to weave towels, but I think that, you know, here and there as I have them, I'll let you know in case you're interested. They're 100% cotton, and I usually use a mix of a couple different cottons. I might experiment at some point with doing some cotton and linen, you know, I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, I'm having a lot of fun getting back to weaving, and I'm taking So I also was asked on Instagram about like showing more weaving in the videos. Would I teach, give a tutorial about weaving? Okay, so weaving is very doable, but it's not something that I could just teach you in an afternoon if we hung out. Like I could teach you like, you know, here's how you beat the fabric in and here's how you throw a shuttle. But like the whole process, you know, I can't teach that in a short period of time because it's a more involved hobby. It's the most involved hobby I have. It's more time consuming. So there's not really gonna be a way for me to ever teach you. But, you know, just like I did in earlier videos, you know, I can show some footage of me weaving so you can just see what it's like. If you're interested in weaving, I encourage you to explore that and to not wait until some future date when things are perfect in your life. The thing that most bums me out is when I hear people say they're waiting until they retire to do X thing and it's something they could be doing right now. Because it's like, well, life is short and you don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know, unless you truly can't fit it in or whatever, like I would just, if you want to weave, start weaving now. There are lots of ways to get into it. So the way I got into it was I bought a Craftsy class on rigid heddle weaving, and I was like, let's see if I even want to do this, seeing how much work it is. Like, can I see myself doing all these steps? And the answer was yes. And I liked the result. So I bought Angela Tong's Craftsy class on rigid heddle weaving, and you make like a scarf and a couple of towels. And I just thought it was amazing that you could make towels. I still think it's amazing. It's still magical to me. What I would say about it is buy a class. You can do a Craftsy class. There's a couple of them. Interweave has some classes. Watch the videos. And then, you know, if you're interested, there's places you can get looms used. There's used fiber equipment groups on Facebook. There's Marketplace on Facebook. Ravelry has some fiber equipment groups. So there's ways, you know, you can look on Craigslist for looms. Just do some research. You could see about a rigid heddle loom. If you want to do floor loom weaving, there are videos, same thing. For me personally, I wasn't in a position financially to be able to go right to a floor loom, and I didn't know that I wanted to. And the only reason that I got interested in floor loom weaving is because I enjoyed the rigid heddle weaving so much. I started doing more complex things that took forever to do on a rigid heddle loom. So once I hit deflected double weave, and I was trying to weave this pattern, and I wove 1 inch in an hour. And then I was on YouTube looking at how to deal with keeping the edges tidy, and I watched a weaving video where someone on a floor loom wove 1 inch in 1 minute. And I wove it in an hour. And I'm like, what am I doing? And that was when I started to think about a table loom or a floor loom, when I realized that I was insane. So it took me a while, you know, there was a progression. Doesn't mean you have to do that way. You might prefer a floor loom or a table loom. That was just my progress. I borrowed a table loom from a friend, and then I eventually bought a floor loom secondhand. And that made it more affordable. And same thing. And you can find looms from weaving shops and yarn shops that are selling their equipment. So that's how I got my loom. I bought it from a yarn shop that had classroom looms, and my loom was a classroom loom. That's hard to say. So I think that's all I have to say about that for now, but hopefully I answered some questions and gave you some helpful thoughts about it. If you're interested in weaving, it's really, really rewarding. As I said, it's my most challenging hobby. It's not something that I can just sit down and do like immediately. Like, I want to weave this and I'm just going to sit down and weave it. There's a lot of steps involved, but it's totally rewarding, totally worth it. I love it. It's very zen at times. When things are going, just like with cross stitch, right? You can get into a flow with cross stitch and it's great. And then when something goes wrong, it stinks. And that is true of everything. True of weaving too. So yeah. Okay. I think that's enough about weaving. Hopefully I haven't lost y'all yet. little bit awkward leaving the camera where my arm would normally go, so I'm trying to not hit you. So I've also been back to work, if you can believe this. I actually kind of can't believe this is happening. Working on my Halo quilt. This is from the book Jenny from One Block. So the original quilt is like 36 blocks, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Maybe it's just the border. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7, 4, 6. Okay. 7. Okay, so 7 by 7 of the circles. Counting is hard, people. And I'm doing mine like twice as big as this to fit my bed. So I had the center finally finished. If you've been watching from the beginning, the quilt that's on the wall behind me is this, Halo, Jen Kingwell. And the border is all that I have left. This part here, which makes the circles float because it adds some space around them. So you're still doing these like quarter circles, and then there's a border around it. I tried to pull this out the other day, and I'm like, I don't know if I can face this. I just want a piece like a block, and I couldn't face it. So I was on a Zoom with my friends, and I'm like, can I just stop making this or what? And we discussed it at length, and then it was decided that I needed to just get it together and finish the darn border. Like, cut the border blocks out and be done with it, girl. So I developed a system where they pretty much were telling me, like, stop overthinking things. It's not that big of a deal. It's just the border. You put a lot of work into the rest of the quilt. It'll be fine. It'll turn out fine. So I'm like, okay. So I developed a system. I'm using really 7 different colors, but I grouped 2 of them together. So I'm working in 6s. So I've got my pinks, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then I'm combining purple and gray as a group. And then I'm doing the same thing here. So that was my system for how am I going to cut these out and like figure out how many I need and do this quickly. So that's what I decided. So then I ended up needing to cut like 12 of each color. And then I did the same thing here with these center blocks. I fussy cut these a little bit more. These I did not. It's good to cut these on the bias to give you a little bit more stretch. And then I had to actually cut most of these out. I needed a few more of these outer edge blocks. So I've cut, unless something goes wrong, I've cut all the blocks that I need, and I've sewn up like 28 or so of them. So I'm trying to make a goal of like a minimum of 10 a day. And I just want to show you like a couple that I thought were humorous. So a friend contributed this fabric to this quilt, and well, I made use of it because how could you not? And then another one that I liked, let's see. Oh yeah, this one. This one is part of a Hello Kitty fabric that I had. It's a bird with a pretzel because why wouldn't a bird need a pretzel? So cute. So yeah, it's coming along well. I've got lots of cuteness here. So I think it might actually, I think I'm afraid to say this because I feel like I will doom myself, but I want to believe that I can get this quilt top completely together this summer. The top is all together except for the border. So send me good thoughts. Let's make this happen. What else can I tell you? I got a new sewing machine. I've decided to include an unboxing for you of the sewing machine, and I love it. I actually used it to piece or to finish. I'm not quite done fully finishing. I've got a project that I stitched years ago that I'm fully finishing. I just need to sew on the ribbon. But anyway, I used it to sew up that project. Works great. So I got a Featherweight. It's awesome. I have 2 Featherweights now. I have 4 sewing machines now. Do I need 4 sewing machines? I do not need 4 sewing machines. But I really am enjoying them. So the white one was on my wish list for a long time. It sews great. So I have a Juki, a Bernina, and then a black Featherweight and a white Featherweight. If I had to pick one, the one that I would pick is the Bernina, because it sews a zigzag stitch, and it sews a straight stitch, and it sews really well. It's a really well thought out machine. It does most of what I need it to do and does it well. And the only thing it doesn't do as well as the straight stitch machines is that if you'd like to do bag sewing, once you start getting a lot of layers lining up, like where you have seams of like lining and your outer fabric, and maybe you've got some fusible interfacing, and perhaps you have some padding of some kind, like a fusible fleece or a flexible foam or something in there, it just can't sew through that many layers. It doesn't matter what needle I use. It doesn't matter what foot I use. It cannot do it. And it's a good machine. I talked to someone about this once, and they're like, well, it's like a Cadillac. It's the Cadillac of sewing machines. And it just can't do, you know, it can't off-road like a Jeep or something. So the Juki and the Featherweights were the things that I used when my Bernina could not sew through lots and lots of fabric. So anyway, I don't need all these machines, but I'm really enjoying them. So I got the white machine all tuned up. Tension's all set. I reset the tension on the black machine. I got the Bernina out. The Bernina's been sitting for 3.5 years because this is so dumb. I had my Juki out because I was working on Halo and I didn't want to change machines. So the Juki's been sitting out for years, and since I wasn't weaving, I didn't need the zigzag, so my Bernina has been sitting for 3.5 years, not being used. And when I pulled it out, it wouldn't turn on. And I tried plugging in a different outlet just in case. Still didn't turn on. I flipped the switch a couple more times, and finally there's like a and it went off, and I'm like, oh. So I flipped the switch again. It was neglected, and it was not happy, but it turned on, and now it's working great. And I'm like, why did I put this away for 3.5 years? This machine is amazing. I don't know. Okay, so I purchased this sewing machine. It's a Singer Featherweight. Now you might know if you've been here for a little bit that I have a Singer Featherweight already. I got one last summer. But for probably, I don't know, a decade and a half at least, I've wanted a white one. And I finally took the plunge. So I thought we might enjoy a little unboxing of my new used white Singer Featherweight. I'm so excited. So I bought this from a seller on Etsy. And so with my black Singer Featherweight, I bought it from someone who sold jewelry. So I knew that they didn't know much about sewing machines. They thought it was in good condition and it sewed. But I figured I'd have to do some maintenance to it when I got it. And I did. And that was fine. It's kind of fun to do. But it also means that however much you spend buying the machine originally, you're going to be investing probably more money doing, buying things to replace parts and things. So for the white machine, I thought, if possible, I'd like to get it from someone who knows something about Singer Featherweights and would already have done maintenance, so that anything I would have to buy would be kind of limited. That was my thinking. And so I found a seller on Etsy who I saw sold and serviced black and white featherweights. And so I just kind of kept an eye on her shop, and then saw that she had one in stock that looked really good and decided to go for it. So let's have a look, shall we? It's in a Home Depot box. Fragile. So exciting. Handle's in good shape here. Inside is cool. It's got this like houndstooth check. Smells old. Does not have any trays or anything in it. It's just empty. And now the machine's all wrapped up. Ooh, interesting. Even got a little post-it note, stored below for safety. That's the thread post. Looks like it's in nice shape. Okay, I'm almost ready to show you. Trying to get it all together here. It's the foot pedal doesn't detach like it does in the black featherweights. So this is in really, really good shape. The paint and finish looks really nice. Oh, it's so pretty. Yeah, that looks great. Here's the back side in case you want to see. Yes, this is a really, really nice looking machine. Really good condition. And they had done some things already, like replace the belts. They put an LED light in, which I can do, but they already did it for me. So it's been serviced. There's a video on Etsy showing it sewing so that you could see that it sewed well and showed the stitches. They left it in here, the piece of fabric, and it just looked really good. So, and it came with not many attachments, which I was fine with, because although I understand that it adds to the value, like I don't really need that many attachments. I don't use that many. So it just came with the regular presser foot, it came with a seam guide, and then it came with a walking foot. So that is fine by me. Okay, well, I'm gonna attach the post, and you know, I haven't used my other featherweight in like almost a year, so I have to remember how to thread them. I'll get it set up, and then maybe I can do a little demo for you. I went antique shopping while I was on vacation, and I want to tell you about that. So, and then I went to my mom's house and I went antique shopping. I went to the South's largest antique mall. That's what they claim, and I believe them. Who am I to argue with that? I've been following someone who's a vendor there on Instagram. And then I think I saw an ad for the depot at Gibson Mill. Or maybe I had started following them at that point. But anyway, they said something about their location. And I'm like, we're going to be driving across North Carolina. Is that like at all on the way? Because we're going from Outer Banks to Asheville. Oh, it's right on the way. My boyfriend was game for stopping. I was so excited. Made my vacation. That was just one of the places we stopped, but it was awesome. I bought a lot of awesome stuff. I'm going to insert a couple pictures here of some of the stuff I got. It was all fabulous. And I went to some other places too. So on the way home, we went up, I think it's 11, through Virginia. Because we want to stay way, way, way away from DC. Because if there's anything we've learned, it's that we don't like DC traffic. And it's, it's everywhere. So we went up, I think it was 11. And there were several antique shops along the way. I hit some of them, found some great stuff. One in particular was really cool, and we kind of had to rush through because we were kind of tired of driving at that point. We're getting closer to home. So I didn't find anything there, but I loved it, and I would definitely go back, and that wasn't so far away for us, so I could see possibly getting to go back to that one at some point. But the depot at Gibson Mill, so it's like an old mill, and I'm all about turning old mills into antique shops. Yes, let's do that. So this was a giant mill, and it wasn't the only thing. The antique shop wasn't the only thing in this building, but it was so cool. It had, the floors had like their own little like street names. And then there was a map that you did need to find your way and make sure you didn't miss anything. There were rooms like the yarn room, things like that, because it had been a mill. Anyway, it was just super cool. And then there was an area that had been a cafe, but it was like a good guy hangout for guys that don't care about antiques and want to sit around and do other stuff while the women they're with go shopping. Or at least that's all that was, I'm sure it's vice versa, but all that were there were guys hanging out on that particular day. So that was really cool. And then when I went to Michigan, we went to some antique shops. We went to a place that's like home dec / antiques called Re-Inspired Treasures in Grand Rapids. It was a place I had followed. I think I found them on Facebook. Anyway, they had some really cool stuff there. I got this really cool arched window. And then they told us to go eat at this restaurant right next door. I think it's called Real Food Cafe. Chef's kiss, the most amazing food ever. We were just lucky to be directed there. We're like my mom's like 45 minutes away from Grand Rapids, so it's an easy drive. But the reason we were in Grand Rapids is because she found something on Facebook Marketplace. Well, I found it for her, and we went up and bought it. Then we went there. Then we went to the restaurant. Best sweet potato fries I've had in my life, and I consider myself a connoisseur of sweet potato fries. Also, everything else looked amazing. Like, I couldn't decide between breakfast and lunch. I think we're gonna have to go back. Then we went to another place. Now, my mom found this, but another Facebook Marketplace find in Tecumseh, Michigan, which the locals pronounce Tecumseh. But I would have pronounced it Tecumseh. Anyway, whatever. We don't need to bicker about pronunciations. The important thing is we went there, and then there was some cool antique shops, and there was this really good British tea restaurant place. And I wasn't thinking that a tea place was going to have good food, but we saw the menu in the window, and they had pasties on the menu, and I've not had a good pasty since, I don't know, the last time we went up north in Michigan, like a million years ago, 20, 30 years, I don't even know. And I'm like, oh man, I gotta try this pasty. So we went in, the best pasties, just as good as Northern Michigan. Ugh. I mean, they get them from somewhere else. I would not be surprised if they're shipped from somewhere in like the upper lower peninsula or something. They were just like the ones we had when I was a kid. So good. The dessert was amazing. We took some pasties frozen home with us to eat. Oh my gosh, so good. So that place was a huge yes. And it was like 2 hours away. I would go back. Actually, it's kind of on my way. If I go to Michigan and I go up kind of diagonally to Michigan, I can hit it on the way up and maybe get some pasties to take to my mom. So really fun, lots of antique shopping, had a great time visiting. I really needed all those vacations. Yeah, so it was just a really good time. So that's what I've been up to, working on new designs for coming out in the fall, mentally preparing myself for the fact that I need to go back to work in the fall, right around the time the expo happens, all that good stuff. I don't currently have fabric in the shop, but I will. I'm working on, can't really see it, I don't think, but I'm working on getting some soft pumpkin in the shop. So that'll be happening in the not distant future. So I haven't had as much time to dye fabric, but I am still dyeing it. So I just send out a newsletter when I have fabric, and you know, I don't really know when I'll have X color, because unless I'm dyeing it for a design, like I have to kind of prioritize the fabric for the designs that are upcoming. So I often don't know when I'll have something that I've had before. So I don't know, like, you know, if you miss out on the soft pumpkin, when will I have it again? I don't know. Next year. I usually only dye it once a year. Last year I didn't even have time to dye it. So it's a special thing. I love dyeing it. It's actually like one of my favorite colors. It makes me happy every time I dye it, but it's just that it's seasonal and no one wants it at other times of the year. So I really can only fit it in like now, kind of. Yeah, anyway. So I've been getting some new fabrics in the shop, some new colors of Zweigart fabric. You can check those out. I've really been digging the vintage Zweigart fabrics lately, and I've been using them more in designs like Vintage Country Mocha. I've been using some, and I've also been looking at some of the other vintage colors and thinking of how I can incorporate them because I really like them. They have that kind of semi-hand dyed look, but they're printed fabrics on one side. So there's that, and it's been a good summer for me. I'm trying to, you know, do my quilting, I'm doing my weaving, trying to take some time for myself, do some self-care. So that's been good. So I'm saving this for the last, I don't know if I should be talking about this or not. It feels like not, and which is why I haven't talked about it, but I'm having a really hard time making videos, honestly. Like I had fun making this one. Now I've changed up the format and re-recorded it a few different times in different ways. It often feels very overwhelming to me to pull everything together and make a video. And so that was why I wanted to kind of break it up into different sections. But just like the hauling of everything together and making sure I impart all the information that's needed, it's hard for me. I don't know what to do about it. Splitting things up helps, but I don't feel like I've had as much like physical energy as I normally do, and I think that's contributing to it. Just feeling like making a video is hard. You know, I've got to show up, and I'm not wearing makeup this time because that makes it a little easier for me. And I'm in a different location because then I don't have to like move a million things around in my living room out of the way. Now, especially now that there's a loom in the living room. I've got cones of yarn, a circle of rainbow cones of yarn in front of the hutch right now that I didn't feel like moving. So I'm in front of my fabric in my craft room. But anyway, I've just been having a really hard time making videos. This has been going on for a while. I've been making videos for a while, but you know, I'm just dealing with some, I guess I would call it burnout, and you know, perhaps it's reflected in my videos, and I guess I'm just trying to be honest and let you know that it's been what's been going on. It's hard for me to make them. I feel like I don't know what to talk about. Not in terms of like the projects, but like my personal, like what I'm up to. I think I have issues with feeling like other people are going to think I'm boring. And so I find it difficult to talk about, like, to make small talk, to talk about what I've been up to. And I don't think that used to be as hard. It's gotten worse now. And I don't know if I've just gotten more critical. Maybe I've gotten more boring. I don't know. But anyway, there's that always in the back of my mind. Probably the feeling on Flosstube that people are always you know, there seems to be this thing of like, and I've never gotten these negative comments, but, you know, people talk about how commenters will say like they want to hear less about them. And I guess that doesn't motivate me to talk more about myself. I already didn't really want to talk about myself that much. And then hearing those kinds of things that other people are getting that feedback makes me like not want to talk that much about myself even more. And that's not really anyone's fault. And like I said, it's not like any of you have ever said anything like that to me. But I think that's also playing a role in me finding it difficult to talk about like the more mundane parts of my life. So a lot of hang-ups. Yeah. So I'm just letting you know what's going on so that, you know, if you're like, why don't you make videos more often? If you're wondering what's going on, it's just, I'm just having a hard time bringing myself to do it. And once I do it, it's fine. But there's like a certain, I don't know, hump I have to get over of inertia. And I can't figure out what to do about it. You know, maybe it'll get better. Maybe it won't. You know, maybe I need to slow down on videos, not that I'm making them that often. I don't know what the answer is. If I knew it, I would just do it. But I keep trying different things to see what will work. How can I make this as simple as possible for myself? And, you know, I was talking with my boyfriend about this and he's like, well, maybe you need to think about why you started doing this to begin with. And of course, the reason I started making videos was because I had blogged and I liked sharing my projects with people. And I thought it would be interesting to try making video blogs, basically. I used to keep a blog for years. And I liked the idea that I would just make it and it would kind of be done. Whereas, you know, I could edit a blog for hours, although I find that I edit the videos quite a bit. But I love the interaction with you guys. I've loved getting to know you this way. I think there's a lot of value in that. I love the community that it creates. Yeah, all those things matter to me and they're the reason why I was doing this. But I feel like in some ways I've kind of lost sight of that. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure since I'm also running a business and I feel like I'm supposed to be professional. I find it difficult. Like I don't know what to do. And I'm not always that professional. I'm just kind of me. I try to be professional and respectful and whatever. I try to be whatever I need to be, but I don't know. Anyway, there's like a lot of conflict within me about this and yeah. So I'm just trying to be open about something that's hard for me to talk about. It's been going on for a while and I don't know what to do, but I'll figure it out. Or, you know, I mean, worst case scenario, I don't make videos as much, or maybe at some point I don't make them, but hopefully I'll keep going. And, you know, I don't know. Are you all still enjoying watching videos? Like, are you still enjoying Flosstube as much as you used to? You know, I know for me that some of the people I used to really enjoy don't make videos anymore, but then some of the people I really enjoy still do. So I don't know. It's hard. Okay, well, if you hung in there this long, thanks. I appreciate your visiting with me. I hope that it was an enjoyable video for you. And, you know, what are you working on these days? Are you doing a bunch of different projects? Are you just doing one? Are you doing only cross stitch? Are you also multi-crafting? Let me know what you're up to. I'm sorry that I can't always respond in the comments. I try to, but usually it gets away from me at some point. But I want you to know that I really appreciate the time that you take to leave me comments and that connection matters to me. So thank you for doing that and thank you for taking the time to watch. Take care.